Good morning, good life. In this episode, we're getting into the details about designing your dream career. Ashley Stahl is making her comeback on Detail Therapy today, and we're talking about how you can get unstuck and discover your passion, including the nitty-gritty details about finding your core skill set. It's time for some Detail Therapy so that you can uncover your path to going after the life you want.
She's an award-winning YouTuber and best-selling author, obsessed with helping you go after the life you want.
I like it.
Join her as she seeks out the stories and strategies
Give me every little detail.
of extraordinary people who found success.
I'm going to get emotional. Oh my God.
Welcome to Detail Therapy with Amy Landino.
Oh, this is such a bittersweet day. This is our last interview before we take a little summer break action, and it is such a fun one. I'm so excited that Ashley came back. If you recall episode 42, we talked to her and she was sort of giving us a little sampling of what was to come in her book, and now her book is here. And so she's telling us all about it today. You're going to love this one if you want actionable advice on trying to figure out who you are in your career and what your skill sets are. So stay tuned for that. If you're new here, hello, my name is Amy Landino. I will be your host. I'm a success coach and founder of Gatlu House, a resource dedicated to helping you go after the life you want. You can see all of our work, including the show notes for this podcast, by visiting detailtherapy.online. I'm not going to waste any time because we just got straight into it. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, I haven't talked to you in forever, but you have just such a good chat because we just jive when we're giving content, me and Ashley. So you're going to love this. But let me introduce you to her. Ashley Stahl is a counter-terrorism professional turned career coach and author of the book U-Turn, Get Unstuck, Discover Your Direction, Design Your Dream Career. And she's on a mission to help you step into a career you're excited about and aligned with. Through her 2 viral TEDx speeches, her online courses, her email list of more than 500,000 people, and her show, U-Turn podcast, she's been able to support clients in 31 countries in discovering their best career path, upgrading their confidence, and landing more job offers. She maintains a monthly career column in Forbes, and her work has also been featured in outlets such as Wall Street Journal, CBS, Self, Washington Post, Chicago Tribune, and so many more. Check out her free quiz to get clarity on your best career path options, visiting ashleystahl.com. Let's get into it with Ashley. Ashley Stahl, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me back.
I'm so excited because I feel like this is the podcast episode we've been waiting for since the last time I talked to you. Before we get into that, why do you do what you do?
My bread and butter is helping people get crystal clear on the career that they're truly meant for. And I do it because when you don't have clarity, it is emotionally and financially expensive. So that's why I do what I do. I know how much pain it can cause people and how much opportunity costs they leave on the table when they don't know who they are and how to channel that into their career path.
I love that. We talked a lot about this last time you were on the show, episode 42. You and I were in Vegas at the Women's Leadership Conference. We talked all about this kind of thing, getting clarity, knowing yourself, and knowing your career calling. And at the time, you talked about a little book you were working on. And that's the book I have in front of me today. It's called U-Turn, Get Unstuck, Discover Your Direction, and Design Your Dream Career. How excited are you to finally have this thing out in the world?
Honestly, I have to say, one thing that I discovered writing that book was that there's pretty much 3 lily pads, I think, that exist in somebody's career. The first one is kind of like, I don't know what I want to do. And I don't care to put the effort in because it scares me or it's inconvenient for my life to go figure it out. And I think most people are kind of there. And then the second lily pad is kind of where this book tries to bring people. And there's a lot of like swimming in between lily pads. Like transition is just such a part of life. But the second one is kind of where you know where you're gifted and you know what options exist for you and you're either in them or you're pursuing them, but you're committed to having a career that really aligns with who you are. And that's my book's big message is don't just follow your passion or do what you love. Instead, do what you are, like get crystal clear. Cause there's so many people just roaming the planet kind of undefined, like much beyond their favorite snack or their favorite music. They might not know who they are. And so that's really what this book was written for. And then the third lily pad, which is where I think I got my first experience writing this book, is like soul work, mission, dharma. It's like a higher level of purpose. And the first time I've ever hung out there was in the process of writing this book. It was like an emptying of the soul. I felt like I was just operating from a higher level as I was writing it. And it's the thing I've created that I'm just the most proud of and the most pure with. There was nothing sticky. There was no personal agenda. It was like, this is a book of 300 pages of me just teaching someone how to come home to who they are and make what I like to call a U-turn. So I couldn't be more proud of it. And I just hope it gets into the hands of anyone that is really trying to ask those deeper questions on where they truly belong.
I love how you just described that. Those lily pads are so prevalent. I feel like when I'm speaking with people in the community or friends or family about, where they are at that moment. And many of us hang out between 1 and 2, right? There's
Yeah.
a lot of self-discovery that happens from, I don't know what the heck I want, to, I've started to find some things. I started to get some qualifications. Maybe I went to school for something or whatever. But I'm still trying to figure out fully what number 2 is, because there's also a lot of places that your path may have predetermined destinations for. But we live in a time where whatever you are working toward achieving, whether it's like a PhD or MBA, or it's something else entirely, maybe it's not even a schooling, you want to just come up with your special sauce for something that you can do with that. So I feel like between 1 and 2 is hard enough. What do you feel like was the difference between 2 and 3? Like when
Yeah.
you've got so much clarity on the second lily pad that you're now just like completely soul open in 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that when you know who you are, so when you swim over from, I don't know what I want to do and I'm not going to figure it out, to I'm willing to go figure it out, I think that swim is kind of what my book is trying to do. It's an 11-step framework to help people reconnect to who they are. And there's everything in there from the 10 core skill sets I think exist in the workforce to your core values. In order to get from the first one to the second one, and then the second to the third, first one to the second one, you need to know really 2 key dynamics. The first one is the what of your career, meaning what are you skilled at? Where are you gifted? And it's funny because I think back to my first job. I worked at a preschool when I was 16 over the summer, and I was helping in the cafeteria. And I would always notice little typos on the marketing materials. And I would comment to the front desk, like, hey, you guys have a typo. And whether I liked it or not, my core skill set of words was shining through. And that's what happens when you're operating out of an area that's a gift. And the funny part about it is that people don't really notice where they're gifted because, I don't know, it's like it's hard to read the label when you're inside the jar, you know? So once you get to that second lily pad where you read my book or you don't, and you just have conversations or you get a mentor or something, you get to a place of, okay, I know where I'm gifted. And that puts you into a river current. Unless you make that choice, you're kind of doing what I think it was Emerson or Thoreau. He said most men, and I would obviously add women, live lives of silent desperation. And I think that's what it is over there. And people who say that they're fine, they're just not in touch with their pain. And so when you can make it to that second lily pad, you're in the river current where what happens is that people notice when you're good at something because everybody in the workplace wants to work with someone who's good at what they're doing. It makes their job easier. If they're on your team, they look better. That person can make more money when they're, it's just everybody's happy when people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so when you're kind of in that river current of working in a zone of gift for you, a zone of genius for you, what starts to happen is you start attracting opportunities. People start to say, wow, this girl's really good at, for example, my 10 core skill sets. Mine is words. Like I talked about the preschool, I've had that forever. And once I started knowing that, and I really misunderstood it for a long time, like in my early 20s, I worked in national security at the Department of Defense. And my job there was I thought it was kind of harnessing my skill set of words. And of course, I didn't have this framework to look at. But I remember thinking when I took the job, there's some intelligence analysis in this. This is really allowing me to work with words and write. But what I didn't realize is no, the core skill set of an intelligence analyst is not words, it's analysis. And you use literally different sides of your brain to be a creative writer versus an analyst. And so it was a misunderstanding of my core skill set. So once I kind of uncovered my framework, which I have such a unusual story, obviously, going from national security to career coaching. But once I really figured this out for myself as a career expert and started coaching clients through this, whether it was in courses or on my podcast or in my book, it became so clear that everybody has a few core skill sets. And out of my list of 10 that I have in chapter 2 of the book, you can look at them and say, okay, I've got 3 of these, 2 of these, but you're always best at one of them. And the key is to start to figure out which one am I really best at. And, a lot of relationship research indicates that couples don't really know as well as their friends know if they're headed for divorce. And I think it's the same with, your career. Like people around you know where you're great. And so to just get to that second one, it's like you need to be able to say to people, when have you seen me at my best? A couple friends, a couple colleagues.
Yes.
Get yourself in that river current. So going from 2 to 3, like you asked, and sorry for the huge lead.
No, I'm so into this. Keep going.
Okay. That one is, well, first things first is realizing who you are in between purposes. When you're in transition, which life is just one big transition, so we're always in transition. When you're in transition, you have to be careful because it can be really tempting to just grab onto something for the sake of having something. And that just gets you so much more lost than you could ever be. And it's so key and so important that you're able to say, all right, this is my skill set. And instead of forcing a job on myself, forcing myself to be somewhere, I'm just going to let life be my coach. I'm going to let life show me what's best for me. Because if in the middle of a transition, when you're swimming in between lily pads, you just grab onto something for the sake of it. And, I'm all for engaging. Like if you've thought about it enough, it's time to just kind of try something on, of course. But I think there's also a time where it's like, all right, I've tried. And, now I'm going to just take action. So after you've reflected, but, too many people just grab onto things for the sake of it. And then they spend more time, even though they think they're moving forward, they're actually moving backward because who you are always wins. Yes. And if you're not honoring who you are, eventually that's going to get really loud and the role you're choosing is going to come undone, for lack of a better term. Meaning you're not enjoying it, you can't sustain it, you don't want to do it anymore, whatever have you. So once you kind of, go talk to me.
No, you go ahead. I mean, I love how much you're going into this here, and the reason why I'm glad you went on that sort of like wavelength or let's say current
Tangent.
is yeah, but I love a good tangent. That's what we love about details on detail therapy. You have these 11 steps, right? And we're talking about that number 2, that core skill set. And what's interesting is I just talked about something on Amy TV where I think we're finding that we're in a time right now where everyone is hearing, oh, find your passion, you'll never work a day in your life, or find that passion point, right? But we're also then saying to ourselves, like, what do you mean I don't know my passion? Like, it just makes it sound like you're not intuitive to yourself and what makes you happy whatsoever. And also that your passion has to therefore become your career because that's what we're hearing from everybody. Where in all actuality, if we do this self-discovery and we understand whether it gives us a load of passion or just enough passion to light a fire under us, to find something that gives us purpose and really understand what are the core skill sets that give us purpose, that makes something a calling. And we forget that calling means someone's actually calling you to say, hey, can you do that? Because you seem really good at that.
Yeah.
The number one question I get in response to that is, how am I supposed to fully identify with what I am best at when you are just overcome with imposter syndrome? How is it's so hard to zero in on what those core skill sets are going to be. What advice would you give somebody that is maybe spending a little bit too much time with themselves internally, where imposter syndrome is is very, very present. And you need to get outside of that to identify what those skill sets are so you can just, objectively approach them and try to define like what is my career going to be.
Yeah, well, there's really two dynamics when you're swimming from that second lily pad of being in your gift to the third one. The first is the what, which is kind of what we talked about, like your skill set. And I can go through the 10 if it's helpful, or else people can read the book, whatever you think. But first, it's knowing where you're gifted. And then you're in that sifting process where people start to hand you opportunities and you get to say yes and no and be in this calibration with the world around you. Because when you're gifted, it's just inevitable that people will start to hand you and ask you and offer you things. That's just what happens when you're doing what you're supposed to be
Right.
doing. From there, the second piece of the puzzle is the how. And the how is more about your core values. Given that we know 50% of people leave their job because they don't like their boss, what we know to be true is that how your job looks really matters just as much as what your job is.
Mm.
And because of that, you need to get clear on what are your core values? What are the non-negotiable principles by which you live your life? And really taking the time to reflect on that and get in touch with yourself is so key. Really asking yourself, like, what are those key ingredients to who I am? Because one mistake that a lot of people make with core values is they choose words like authenticity, family, whatever have you. They choose words that are more aspirational, meaning like they wish they were, maybe they'll pick the word peace. I had a lawyer once who was very high functioning. She told me like, oh, I think peace is a core value. I'm like, I don't know. Like, you don't seem like the most peaceful. And we both just laughed and we were kind of like, okay, peace is an aspiration and that's cool to know. Like she wants more peace in her life, but it's not a core value. It's not a key ingredient. Something's a core value for you when if you remove that word, you're not there anymore. So like, for example, if I have a friend over and I'm not like cracking a joke and it's been more than half hour, somebody's going to say to me like, are you okay? Like something wrong?
Yeah.
Because it's just not me. And that's when you've hit on a core value.
Oh my gosh. I don't think I've ever heard anyone explain that so well, but also so simply to understand because oftentimes we set ourselves up for failure in determining our core values just because the phrase core values is aspirational for some of us. Like, what are my core values? It sounds very zhuzhy and fancy and lovely, and I'm going to put it in my Instagram bio. Like,
Yeah.
no, let's get really real about how do you operate. I love that you shared that. Let's zero back in though on these core skill sets. I do want you to walk through the 10 of them. And yes, you guys have to read every inch of U-turn and this is just one chapter. This book is so loaded. There's workspaces in here. Like you're going to have yourself pretty figured out after you read this book. But can you kind of give us like the Ashley's notes? I don't want to say Cliff's notes.
Yeah.
Ashley's notes on each of these skill sets so people can start to understand, okay, what land am I really playing in here? Let's get real.
Yeah, I love these because they're so clear. And again, just a reminder to anybody, get feedback, ask people where they've seen you at your best and put it up against these 10 skill sets and ask yourself, like, where am I really performing and shining? And so they're not in any particular order, but the first one is innovation. So this is for the creative self-starter or the visionary. It's the entrepreneur or the intrapreneur. It's the person who, if you're an entrepreneur versus an entrepreneur, it's kind of about your relationship to freedom and financial risk. So the entrepreneurs are the visionaries that need all out creative freedom, time freedom. They want to work on what they want to work on, has to be their idea, and they want to work when they want to work. And then there's the entrepreneur who, they need some level of autonomy, they need some level of flexibility, but their relationship to financial risk is they'd rather have a little bit more expectability with their income. Then you have the builder. So that's skill set number 2 is building. This can be quite literal, or it can be a little bit more like a metaphor. So it could be like a construction worker, or it can be like a strategy consultant, someone whose mind is in building energy. So it's just how you harness your energy, your mind, your heart, your body, your hands. Number 3 is words, which we talked about as my core skill set. And one question to really think about with any of them, but I especially think about with this one, is are you an introvert or are you an extrovert? And the reason you have to ask yourself this is because it points to how you want to express your core skill set. So, I'm actually a little more introverted than people realize. So, I've done a lot of keynotes and I travel a lot for speaking, but I sleep for 24 hours after those because I'm an
Relatable.
introvert. Yeah. I am the biggest introvert, ever. So it's one of those things where it's just so important that I look at words and I say, what are the internal ways of being a words person? The worst thing you could do to a words person who's an introvert is make them a business development, sales, or talent agent type of person
Mm.
who's out all the time. It kills them. And then the fourth one is motion. That one is for the fitness trainers, the tour guides. It's the talent of being on your feet all the time. And then the fifth one is service. This is for the helpers, humanitarians, the supporters, just people who really make an impact through serving. And what's important for these people is to ask yourself, where is my skill set coming from? Because, sometimes service people just learned how to be a people pleaser from a young age in their family unit, and it's not who they are,
Yeah.
or it's both. They have both inside of them. And so that's that piece of the puzzle. And then number 6 is coordination. And this actually reminds me of the same question. I met someone who, like, oh my, like, heartbreaking. She lost her parents at a young age and she raised her siblings.
Wow.
And she was a tight coordinator. And her whole career, she thought she was a coordinator because she's so good at it. But she had to learn how to do that, And when she came into my practice, she realized, oh, wait, like, this is who I've had to be. And I actually hate it.
It was survival. It wasn't her who she truly was.
Exactly.
Mm.
So it's important to
Wow.
just know that. And then number 7 is analysis. And, this was kind of that example I gave of, words is my core skill set, but then I ended up in analysis. So sometimes you're just a couple millimeters off in your career. And it's so important instead of, it's like an industry is like an entire pie. Like I worked in the government and there's many different slices of that. And I think some people will have a slice of the pie, like in my case, an intelligence analyst role, and they'll say, "Oh, this doesn't taste right. I might as well just throw away the whole pie." Where it's like,
Mm.
maybe there's just a different slice. So in my case, and another thing to think about is none of these skills point to one job title. Like you can be
Right.
a psychologist and your core skill set is words, and everything you say is super healing to people. Like, wow, the way she expresses herself does so much. You can also be a psychologist and your core skill set is analysis. And what that could look like is your gift is finding patterns in data, like seeing the data in people.
Mm.
So it's really just about knowing what yours is and seeing it as an umbrella that can lead to how you show up in your
And
career.
potentially how you market yourself, right? Like some people are going to want the analysis therapist. Some people don't want the analysis. They want the words therapist. Right?
Exactly. Like exactly. So great.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Very interesting.
Yes. So that's just another piece of the puzzle. And then number 8 is numbers, our fellow number crunchers, the investment bankers, the bookkeepers. Like, thank God for them. I'm so bad at math.
Mhm. Mhm.
um, and number 9
They
is
give
technology.
entrepreneurs so much life, just
Oh
FYI.
my gosh. Like the amount of entrepreneurs who have like brilliant ideas but need a numbers person to say, like,
It's
stop where
crazy.
you're running. Like, don't do that. It's incredible.
Yes.
Um, and then from there, I would say is technology. So this is artificial intelligence, IT. And then number 10 is beauty. I love beauty. These are the artists. These are the people who make art of the world around, the musicians. They're just making beauty. Designers, just incredible souls.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So this is amazing because when we hear like, oh, what are the skill sets? We're going to expect this like drab list of things that we're trying to pigeonhole ourselves in. But each of these really has such a like, beauty. If someone's an artist, they may not have thought like that they have a skill set other than the exact thing that they do, but truly what they're doing is offering beauty to the world. So each of these has such an overarching broad explanation, but still such a specific quality of why they work the way that they work. And I think that's so great because I know when someone's going to pick up this book that they're going to be able to have such an easier time getting really honest with themselves about, what is the skill set that I have to offer, because we talk ourselves into so much or out of so much of how hard it's going to be to go get a job, to market yourself, to network. And I love that you talk about network in the book as well. I'd love to discuss that for a second, because it's so much to think about and we forget how to sell ourselves. And the idea of that is so scary. But it's like if
Yeah.
we just know how to really elegantly explain how we help people and what that core skill set is, you've literally done your job. The way that you describe that and how you serve is so important so that you can let everyone else's imagination run wild with the possibilities. Oh, I know the perfect job for you, or I know the perfect person that needs an integrator like you for their business, or whatever the case may be. I just love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to think it was cheesy when self-help people would say like everybody has a special thing. And now I'm like, no, I genuinely believe that in my heart. And I just wish for anyone that they take the time to figure out what that is for them.
Yeah. I want to skip to of your 11 step. There's many things in this formula, guys, but I want to skip all the way down to number 9. Stop applying for jobs and start networking. What would you say to someone who's like, it's a lot easier to apply for jobs, even though I don't get a call back. I hate the word networking. Ugh. Like, what's your advice to those people?
Yeah, you know what? First of all, rule of thumb is I never network with people just because of who they are. So if somebody feels like I can't get behind their energy or the way they're showing up in the world, like there's something about their integrity to me, then I listen to that. Like life is too short to surround yourself with people and hope that they can help you because of their name or their fame or something like that. So I'm really a big believer in remembering that the abundance. There's so many people around us. Rarely is it the case that your dad's friend or whatever have you is in a position to actually give you your dream job. That's why it's so important that you're able to say yourself, okay, well, I can't expect, someone to just hand me my dream job. So I need to figure out what is that title. Once you look at your skill set, you look at your values. The skill set is a little bit more like what is kind of the job title? What are you using your energy on during the day? The core values are more of a filter. Like, what do you value? If you value integrity, you probably, and you're a words person, you probably want to make sure you're not selling something you don't believe in, because that's an integrity issue. So you want to know your values. And I think from there, it's holding your career as an experiment, really holding your networking and your conversations as an experiment that can meet you where you are. Remembering, like, for me, whenever I wake up in the morning and I feel like my career has gotten a little bit bland, I just think to myself, like, okay, I need to have more conversations, because conversations for me are what move life forward.
Mm.
And anybody who's kind of saying to themselves, like, I think I know my skill set, I think I know my values, I think I'm ready to start networking with people. See your career as an experiment and remember that your job is to just start having conversations. Get on LinkedIn, use the advanced search, figure out some keywords that reflect the type of job you want. Start getting profiles of people who are super interesting to you, and give yourself permission to reach out to them and have a little Zoom call.
I love that. I love that because it's funny how I don't know how you held up as an introvert in the pandemic, but initially for me it was like, "Woo, I don't have to go anywhere. I'm just going to sit here and be my productive little self." And you know what? That worked for a while, and I am starting to realize now in, you know, beginning to mid 2021 that some of that human connection was really deeply missed. And every time I've actually been getting on phone calls with just colleagues or people I've never met before that we've DM'd on Instagram on Mondays in the morning, and I'm like, hey, and having that little conversation that I would have had loads of if I were traveling or speaking or going to a conference or whatever, I've had significantly less of. But now I can have much more focused time with somebody, hear what's going on with them, hear how I can support them, just shoot the business talk around and discuss and say what are your pain points right now and see if we're on the same page. It's been so refreshing. I can't back that point up enough. And I'm also as introverted as they get. It's really crazy when you are introverted and you've sang that song for so long, but you also then realize, when those connections, those conversations move you and in a positive way and not in a way that's using up your energy as it typically would for us. And it's typically the thing that makes us
Exactly.
see outside of ourselves that we need it so bad.
Exactly. And like I was saying before, it's just so hard to what's easy for you is usually obvious for you, and we miss that it's just not that obvious for other people. Like my partner, like he's not a words person, so he's like sometimes I'll see him texting and his thumb is like hovering all the letters cuz he's trying to think about how to spell something. It's like I don't even think about that. It's so natural for me. And so
Right.
everybody's got a gift. He's got his gifts, I've got mine. And I really think your job in life is to figure out what yours are, because it's exhausting to push the river. It's exhausting to force yourself to be someone you're not. It's simply exhausting. And I think everybody just deserves more than that.
I agree, Ashley. Okay. Usually we ask a lot of details on detail therapy. You've been on the show before. I'm going to let everybody listen to that. But I do want to ask you one of our detailed questions because it's been so long. How has your morning routine changed since we last talked to you? What do you do when you first get up?
I have started, I mean, I don't know if back when we spoke I shared this one, but every morning now, after I wake up, I brew coffee and I write a question at the top of the page of my journal. And it's just something I'm actually wondering, like I'm genuinely stuck on. Like,
Ooh.
what should I do about this client? Or how much should I charge for this if it's something new coming in? Or why do I feel so stressed? Or why doesn't something feel right with this friend? I'll write it at the top of the page. Or if I don't have any of those, I'll just write at the top of the page, what do I need to know?
I love that so much.
What do I need to know?
Just a little thinking project in the morning. This kind of goes, you guys, I did a Twitter thread recently where I expanded on the 10 ideas, the 10 daily ideas challenge sort of, where it's
Mhm.
like I'll do the same thing. I'll just come up with like, well, what's 10 really silly ideas today, or 10 things I could write about, or 10 ways to solve this problem. And you just write whatever comes to mind because you're most likely to write something even as crazy as it is that you would have self-limited before, but now you're just giving yourself the space to let it out so that you can go back to it and go, that one wasn't such a bad idea. Maybe I should do that. Do you feel like that effort that you do in the morning has helped you solve a lot of those questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the wisdom that we have in ourselves is incredible, and it's weird because I write down the question, I start writing answers, and I think, why didn't these come to mind? Why do I have to write it down? But it's like it's really just about putting that space together for
Yeah,
yourself.
it's about giving your mind, your inspiration, your imagination a destination, like a place to put it because suddenly it's real. I love that. Good tip. Ashley,
Yes.
where can everybody follow up with you? Where are we going to get the book? I know you've got a podcast for U-Turn as well. Instagram, drop all the stuff.
Thank you. I love this book so much. I can't wait to hear from anyone who reads it. Please message me on Instagram. On the gram, I'm just at Ashley Stahl. And then the book is U-Turn, YOUTURN, 2 words. And it's Get Unstuck, Discover Your Direction, Design Your Dream Career. It's available everywhere books are sold. If Amazon doesn't ship to you, try Book Depository. And yeah,
It's
I
just
mean,
so
that's
popular
me.
that Amazon might not be able to get it to you. That's huge.
That's happened, and then other than that, I love my podcast, U-Turn Podcast. I've been doing a bunch of solo episodes, just
Yeah.
reflecting. It's been really beautiful to connect with people in that way too.
I love that. We'll link to all of that in the notes. Swipe up in your podcast player, check it all out. Ashley, I'm going to love you and leave you. But finally, my last question: what does it
Yes.
mean to you to go after the life you want?
Oh my gosh. That means that you're being who you are and you don't have to be anyone else. That's what it means to go after the life you want.
Ashley Stahl, thanks for being on Detail Therapy again.
Thank you again.
Such a good one. I know you're all going to pick up the book. There's so much to unpack there. Check it out. Link is in the show notes. And thank you so much to Ashley for coming back and joining us here on Detail Therapy. What a great note to end on for our final interview of season 6. Thank you also to everybody who has been leaving 5-star reviews of this podcast in the Apple Shop. the podcast shop, if you know what I'm saying. And to all of you who are listening on other platforms, just know I appreciate you as well. Wherever you enjoy listening, I appreciate that you help us stay afloat here at Detail Therapy by engaging with the show, DMing us over on Instagram at Details Podcast, and all the other spaces. That's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. Remember, subscribe for good vibes, kiss the ones you love, and go after the life you want. I'll see you back here on Tuesday. Cheers.